You're looking good, and it feels good to be with you today. Hello, I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter, and this is News with the Eyes of Faith, where I talk about news from the perspective of Christ and the doctrine of Christ. Happy President's Day. Look, there's a mattress sale going on. So when in history, when did we start associating mattress day sales with the president? Was it the Lincoln bedroom, or was it the Bill Clinton bedroom? So let me start out with faith news. So President Russell M. Nelson announced that the Salt Lake Temple open house will be in 2027. That's 2 years from now, and open for several months. That's going to be a riot. That's going to be like a mini Olympics. I was up in Salt Lake City during the Olympics for one day, and it's kind of like riding a BART train in San Francisco on Chinese New Year, packed in there. Other item in the news is that we got more hymns downloaded. Think about this as we're getting a lot of giddiness and emotion about it, but let's stop and pause and think things through. I'm going to talk a little bit about zeal without knowledge. What's the philosophy of hymn selections? What hymns do we include in the hymn book and don't include? And of course, that has to be doctrinal stuff. Trinity, infant baptism. It's interesting, we have a song called For All the Saints, which is actually a All Saints Day hymn. We have hymns written by St. Francis of Assisi, Cardinal John Henry Newman, Lead Kindly Light, which is a hymn I like. There's some other ones I have written by Catholics. Of course, we have A Mighty Fortress Is Our God, written by Martin Luther. So do Protestants and Catholics have any of our hymns in their hymn books? Is that a double standard? Well, it's interesting because you can get a replica copy of Emma's hymn book, and I have a copy of it. It's a little tiny one, and it just has words. It doesn't have music to it. It has the common hymns, because some of the music is interchangeable with the words. You can take the music to "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing." You can use that with "Oh My Father." We'll try it sometimes. It's kind of fun to do that. It's a little bit more of something we're left to some discretion and open-ended. It's interesting. I was born in 1970, and we started out with the 1947 hymnal, and then the primary one was that orange one called Sing With Me. So I use a group of those. I haven't left the church yet. I haven't started smoking, haven't given up eternal life for coffee. But it's interesting, that hymn book, the orchestra, it was written in keys that are a little bit hard to play. They have a lot of accidents in the signatures to the music. There's a hymn that was written for when Utah got the statehood. There's also a hymn to Carl G. Mazer, and you can look this up on the internet. Is that's appropriate maybe for a Utah church, but for a global church. I served my mission in Portugal, so I've gone to church in Hawaii, different states of the Union, Idaho, California, Utah. I think in New York, of course in Portugal, and also in St. Petersburg, Russia. So I have an understanding that there is church in other countries, and they have different histories. I have a degree in history and a minor political science. So what's appropriate for a global church? Now, it's interesting, and you have some funny stuff in the 1985 hymnal. Hymns number 173, 174, they're the same hymn with different music. 176, 177, that's funny because we're on the facing pages. The other one are a great hymn, If You Could Hide a Kolob. The music is separate from the lyrics, which were written by W. Phelps. And the music that we use is actually a folk song, and it was adapted by Ralph Vaughan Williams. Just kidding, it's Rafe Vaughan Williams, I just pronounced. So for a while it wasn't on the digital version because the hymn had a copyright, but we apparently ponied up and paid the licensee for it. Although it's interesting, could a member write better music to that? Of course, it'd be a little bit different, but there you go. So the new one, it's international. I'm assuming there will not be any patriotic hymns like the Star Spangled Banner or My Country 'Tis of Thee or God Save the King or Queen or whomever. We've added Faith in Every Footstep, the hymn Gethsemane, written by the Hoffmans. But what's our philosophy is we're adding some hymns that work the rounds in Protestant circles. Are we adding hymns to get Protestants to like us? Like I said, we have Protestant and Catholic hymns in our hymn book. Do they have any of our hymns in their hymn books? And is this a double standard? And are you comfortable with that double standard? Maybe you are. President Ezra Taft Benson talked about this. This is in 1988, and it's the context of the condemnation because of our neglect of the Book of Mormon, which I'll talk about, Section 84. And President Benson said this, and you can also read it in the President Benson Manual, Chapter 10, called Flooding the Earth with the Book of Mormon. President Benson said, "I have a vision of artists putting into film, drama, literature, music, and paintings great themes and great characters from the Book of Mormon." Okay, I have a vision of artists putting them into music, great themes and characters from the Book of Mormon. So how many of these new hymns deal with themes in the Book of Mormon? So we're putting in It Is Well With My Soul, but we're still neglecting the Book of Mormon for some reason. And are we doing this to get Protestants to like us? That's my comment for what it's worth. Don't get angry. But yeah, we're going to talk about that, lifting the condemnation. So Trump news. First of all, you have the circular news. Judge blocks DOGE. Governor Drastic, okay, it gets unblocked. Now, this similar thing happened during the 1930s with Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal. Is that you have all these New Deal programs, and the Supreme Court kept on blocking them. And so two things happened. Is one, Franklin Roosevelt came up with this court packing scheme, which is Joe Biden was trying to do the same thing. It was mentioned where you just do term limits on judges, or you just add more Supreme Court judges so the president could pick yes men. What actually happened is as the Supreme Court aged and people retired or died, they actually used to retire. Now they just all cling on to power, and then they die. You don't have to have all these body bags in the Supreme Court building to take out the justices who just will not go with power. But what they did is President Roosevelt was able to appoint yes men, so he got the New Deal passed through that way. So that's circular news. It's a similar pattern in history, but you're against stopping government waste. And when Bill Clinton and Al Gore did the reinventing government thing back in the 1990s, did you change your opinions? More circular news. Cabinet BICs are confirmed. Elections are won by who shows up. More circular news. The Pope criticizes Trump. Now, I want to say this respectfully. I've read Augustine's Confessions, City of God, and Thomas Aquinas's Summa Theologiae. So I have an appreciation. So I grew up living a block and a half away from St. Barnabas's Basilica in California. So my friends are Catholic, but I don't say this respectfully. También, yo hablo español, el fiz mi misión en Portugal. There's no animus. But when the Pope criticizes Trump on immigration policies and deportations, just remember these are people leaving Catholic countries to come to a Protestant country. And I'm not Protestant. Corruption. The Office of the Special Counsel has found a federal emergency management agency employee's directive to avoid houses with the Trump campaign signs during Hurricane Milton violated Hatch Act prohibitions on electioneering. Yeah, that's what they're doing. We're the persecuted ones right now. So we've got power, and we must wield the sword judiciously. We need to root out this double standard where someone feels it's okay to let people suffer because of political differences. Let's go back to DOGE, and a little bit ETB. You pronounce the G with a ZH. There's a cryptocurrency called Dogecoin, and I don't own any of it. I do invest in crypto as a recreational thing, but you'll get a better return on Campbell's soup. The heyday of crypto is long gone. DOGE and President Ezra Taft Benson. President Benson had this So it's a stump speech, a speech he had to give in different circumstances. He'd travel around and give it, and it's called The Proper Role of Government. Now, I gave it in General Conference in 1968. BYU Speeches has the audio of it. It doesn't have the text of it, but you can get the text off of the conference talk. And the Foundation for Economic Education also has a copy. I think it was from 76. And it's dealing with the proper sphere of government, but also talk about how to reduce government. President Benson, Reinventing Government, Al Gore. There's actually a book called Reinventing Government that was the springboard for this. Vice President Gore's and Bill Clinton's tackling the problem. And so this is what President Benson said. How is it possible to cut out the various welfare state features of our government that have already fastened themselves like cancer cells onto the body politic? Can drastic surgery be performed without endangering the patient? Drastic measures are called for. No compromise actions will suffice. Like all surgery, it will not be without discomfort and perhaps even some scar tissue for a long time to come. But it must be done if the patient is to be saved. And this can be done without undue risk. Remember, this is 1968 in conference. Not all welfare state programs currently on force can be dropped simultaneously without causing tremendous economic and social upheaval. The first step towards restoring the limited concept of government should be to freeze all welfare state programs at their present levels. Sound familiar? Making sure that no new ones are added. The next step would be to allow all present programs to run out their term with absolutely no renewal. The third step would involve those gradual phasing out of those programs which are indefinite in their term. The bulk of this transition could be accomplished, I believe, within a 10-year period and virtually completed within 20 years. Now, presidents get term limited out that. It's the Congress. You need constantly holding your congressional representatives and senators, Senate's part of Congress, to the fire and make sure they're doing this. It's finally, after over 50 years, certainly before I was born, we're finally doing this. We're tackling it. And it's just, we're lifting up the rock and we're seeing all the maggots underneath it, where this is just going to some strange places where, we're doing some good things. We're also doing some suspicious things. This is not where our money needs to go. And it'll take a while for the once we free up the government surplus to pay down the debt, because that's the thing you're doing. That's Dave Ramsey's baby steps. It's Dave Ramsey's baby steps applied to the federal government. So there you go. Follow the prophet. Transgendered news. Just says, to be transparent with you, I'm heterosexual. I have a cousin who's gay, and I have another cousin who's trans female, who just went through female face surgery. So, there you go. I mean, it's an interesting issue. Like I said, it's a family issue. So when I talk about this, I do have this perspective on it. So this is what was reported in KUT News. Transgender college students in Utah will be prohibited from living in dorms consistent with their gender identity under a bill that cleared its final legislative hurdle Monday. Now, first of all, confusocracy. Remember that term I've been talking about, confusocracy? Their gender identity is confused. That's written a way to confuse you. Is that you have your sex at birth, the DNA sequence that you have, then you have your chosen gender identity. And so it's phrasing in a way to make sure the gender identity trumps the biology. And so what we're saying is that the biology is what wins out. Now, someone said, this is a Republican, and it's not listed. One Republican, I didn't find it who actually said this, but this is what was said. If you don't fit in, then that's your own fault. Now, this comment is wrong. You have a choice. You want to be effective, or do you want to be vicious? You're trying to hurt someone, or do you want to take the higher ground? That's wrong frame. It's not constructive. Just say fairness for all, and it's a debated issue. And right now, some of the women feel uncomfortable with a trans female living with them. And like I said, it's we haven't quite worked through the science on this. And this is really avoiding the ontological question, which wins out. Your DNA sequence or your personal belief, which is objective, which is subjective, which is science and which is psychology. And that's what the debate's about. Make sure you're framing it that way. And so how you get out of that is you turn to Revelation, what the Family Proclamation says, the teachings of Joseph Smith. Go back and what Joseph Smith had to say about gender. What's the first statement on gender? This is my beloved son. There you have. Divine beings have a sexual identity. Heavenly Father is hetero male. He's in a heterosexual marriage. I talked last time a little bit about this Instagram post my friend posted, and to begin with this, I'm for free speech and free markets. You treat children you treat children differently, but for adults, free speech, and this is I'm for peaceful protest. What she said in her post on Instagram, as an upper middle class cisgendered white woman, I have a lot of privilege working for me. That made me pause because she's starting out and she's just, grabbing pen. Okay, here's a post-it note. Here's a post-it note. I'm this. I'm white, middle class. I'm cisgendered. Have privilege. Privilege is a loaded term, and we're discussing about sex. It's interesting. Is that because it's shifting? Is it a born quality, or is that something that you choose? And how does the DNA sequence fit into it? George Orwell said, the word fascism has now no meaning except insofar as it signifies something not desirable. And it's the same thing with privilege. It's a sort of a dummy hand grenade. You pull the pin out, you toss it, say with this, but it just doesn't really explode. It's just it's just something you use to throw at someone, or this sort of self-flagellation. You remember from the Da Vinci Code, the albino monk who flagellated himself. She's doing the same thing. She's atoning for the sin of being white. Isn't that disgusting, feeling guilty because you're white? There's just no gratitude. She continues, but I come out for those who don't, and to build community, and to say no to this morally bankrupt administration. Did she vote for Bill Clinton? And let's not, or Joe Biden, who certainly was not there altogether. And let's not forget that abortion bans will hurt menopausal women, as we see fewer and fewer doctors wanting to work in a field of practice that ties their hands against saving women's lives and respecting women's choices. So that's a prediction. And so let's write that down to see how that prediction comes true. Let's not forget that choices being made about the environment today will impact many future generations. Does she drive an SUV? How many houses does Al Gore have? And how many mansions does Oprah Winfrey have? Let's not forget that one accident might separate us from needing accessible spaces in a way that we might not today. And notice these are all scare tactics. They're ad futurum scare tactics. Let's not forget, thanks to that trans folk, quote, agenda, let's not forget that trans folks' agenda is just to live their lives, their full lives. And like I said, I'm for free market. And this creates an interesting dilemma, is what the Doctrine and Covenants says is, thou let not that which I've been appointed be corrupted by the consent of those who call themselves after my name. That as members of the church, we're not enabling something wrong. And so it's going to be a very tricky debate process, as President Oaks talks about. We talk back and forth, we make these incremental choices, an incremental decision. Eventually, over time, we'll come to an optimal solution, as long as we're good-natured. So that's the thing, is look at the free market and free discussion, no internet censorship. And as we talk about these, go back and forth, and it's the question, which wins out, science or psychology? So he'll look at this with the model I've talked about, the feelings, fairness, and friends, which motivates the left. And that's all over that talk about, well, okay, what's fairness to people, allyship as a form of friends community, building friends, abortion menopause, fewer doctors. That's interesting, because that's one of the points of disagreement I have is with abortion, euthanasia, and puberty blockers. Those are all inherently anti-life. They prevent Heavenly Father's plan from progressing. Like, this is news with the IFA, so I'm talking from that perspective. Success by abortifacients, things that enable abortion. Success is defined by killing future generations through abortion. Lindsay Sterling on Instagram, the violinist who's a member of the church, she did a face-to-face. She posted this on Instagram. If men got pregnant, abortion is sacrament. Free abortion clinics at every gas station. If men got pregnant, we have the session. I'm not quoting her right. So this is the saying that if men got pregnant, abortion would be a sacrament. Then she said they talk about there'd be free abortion clinics at every gas station. But women already have shout your abortion, making that sort of a de facto sacrament. Hashtag shout your abortion. That's what's going on right now, is success by abortion, success by death, killing the future. What about women's rights? Lake and Riley, her rights violated, and Riley Gaines. Lake and Riley Gaines. You talk about trans issues and LGBTQ people. Certainly it's impacting Riley Gaines, and she's a spokeswoman for that. Well, We're at 19 minutes. Let me wrap this up. So I saw on a lamp post this flyer next to the bus stop, and it was in Spanish, but I can read it. It was interesting, and that's the first thing is to be successful. You need to be transparent. So I have it in English and Spanish. Not everyone here speaks Spanish, although half of Utah does speak English or Spanish as a first or second language. But it said about an auto rally in West Valley City, and they recommended that people put flags from their home countries on their cars. You see the problem? The home country is not the American flag. It goes back to this isn't strengthening community because you're still being loyal to your former country, not loyal to the new country. And there's some things about resident aliens versus a visa, etc. And it gets a little bit tricky. The Constitution says Congress is supposed to have a uniform law of naturalization. That's not going on. It's not uniform. But it certainly should cause some concerns, like, okay, which way are you facing? Because you're not being loyal to your new country. Now, being a sort of ceremonial way, like someone wearing a kilt or celebrating St. Patrick's Day, but it's the assimilation question. You can't have community. Read the Second Federalist about it. A little bit more about feeling fairness and friends and about Bill Clinton. So he's interesting. He was a moderate who would go left, and that's because Hillary Clinton got radicalized in college. But why he was so effective is that he made you feel good. He's very good at building a community because he's very charismatic and he's a very good public speaker and had that sort of sandpaper rasp and drawl to it. Both him and Al Gore both had southern drawls, which would be kind of charming. But he's so bewitching that people just, in a way that I felt was kind of creepy, they just rush after him. And, in fact, you get the emotional attachment and you give him a pass on lying and sexual harassment. And you have the feminist betrayed everything they stood for and voted for Bill Clinton just to get abortion. Going back to the comment, Lindsey Sterling's comment about abortion clinics in every gas station. Well, that's what happened when you sacrificed your core principle, let the sexual harasser, the slanderer, you voted for him just to get abortion. All that's death of the family, physical death of the fetuses. And what are you willing to sacrifice to get community? Like I said, I raised a question about we have Protestant and Catholic hymns in our hymn book. They don't have any from us, and we're adding more Protestant hymns. We're not doing hymns about, do we have a hymn about the three witnesses? We do have a hymn about the Kirtland Temple. Why not? What's holding the artists back from doing that? Think about, make sure that there's just one standard. So we're at 23 minutes. Let me wrap this up. Like I said, we're sort of getting the circular news tape where it gets a bit repetitive, but certainly we're glad for the transparency about DOGE, and great things will be coming, and make sure we don't take the money from DOGE and replace it with Republican pork. So let's talk a little bit about intellectual ammo. One thing I got this week was Hillsdale College. How do you like that for a title? I started following at Hillsdale about 20 years ago. Paul Harvey would recommend it. President Hinckley quoted from Imprimis, so I started describing it, and it's just kind of like reading one talk every so often. This is for December 2024. I just got it, but yeah, they do. It's just one talk, and it helps you form your arguments and helps you way to persuade people. Remember, there's a difference between arguing and persuading. Another thing that Hillsdale does is called the Champions of Freedom series, the Ludwig von Mises lecture series, and these are a little bit more scholarly argues. And this one, right there, looky there. See that? It says Vivek Ramaswamy. So just go to Imprimis and subscribe, and it's free. They do solicit donations. Maybe $10 a year would be a good way to help them pay out for some other things, cover the cost if you can afford it. Another one I use is Reason magazine. This one's actually has appeared on it. about evicting therapy animals. It's a Reason magazine, Free Minds and Free Markets. And they're actually unbiased because you get both sides of the issue. They have two ones. You have Jewish World Review and Epic Times are good to subscribe to. They're e-magazines and print magazines. I recommend following Never Trumpers. One is George Will. Another one is the National Review. George Will, he gets published in the Deseret News. Critic of Trump, but he's pointing out your weak points. So you should be grateful for that. National Review. That's William F. Buckley's old magazine, and they're really against Trump. But make sure you're open and you're listening when your own side criticize you. This is friendly fire. This is white hat hacking when you listen to a Never Trumper. Remember, it's the other side that stands for shadow banning and censorship and deplatforming. We believe in freedom. They're trying to censor you. Well, like I said, it was just circular news. Got some nice church news. Other than that, that is news with the eyes of faith. Thank you.